Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of Grace Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. This podcast is the digital arm of Grace Life Coaching. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. I want to thank you for being on this journey, particularly this time of year. The journey of growing and improving and helping is something that most people just don't do. They live into old patterns, live into old ways, live into old experiences, and then can't figure out why it is that they feel the way they feel. But you're here because you don't want to do that. You don't want to live into those old ways. You don't want to live into those old patterns. You want to break free and start moving forward. And so good for you. And even if you're just listening, even if you're just beginning to ask the question, that's still so vitally important that you're here, that you're looking, that you're examining. So good for you. Good for you for being here. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being part of this journey. And thank you for allowing me to be part of the journey. If you find this podcast helpful, then please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or the life coaching on any one of those feeds, you're going to see the podcast. Share it out there. Tag me in it. I'd love to see where you're at. I'd love to see where you're listening. And if you're on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, then follow us. Give us a rating and review. Every positive rating and review tells the platform that people are listening. And you'll also get episodes, announcements when a new episode comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. I'd love to hear from you. GraceLifeCoaching.com. It'd be awesome to hear from you. If you need some coaching work or you had some questions or some comments or whatever, that's how you can get a hold of me. GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. And it'd be really, truly a joy to hear from you. So I want to keep digging into this process we've been in around the holiday season and talking about different things. Today I want to talk about emotional boundaries for the holidays. Emotional boundaries for the holidays. I want to dive into something that can completely change your holiday experience if you let it. Emotional boundaries. The holidays, they have a way of stirring up feelings and experiences, memories, and old patterns, sometimes all at once. And if you're not intentional, you can find yourself emotionally exhausted before the season is even halfway through. Before the season even begins, you can find yourself emotionally exhausted. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to find ourselves there. We want to find ourselves living the fullest and most joyful holiday season. So if you've ever walked into a holiday gathering feeling hopeful and left feeling drained, this episode's for you. Anyone who absorbs stress that isn't theirs, anyone who tries to keep the peace at the cost of their own well-being. Today, we're going to talk about how to protect your emotional energy without shutting down or pushing people away. We've talked about boundaries before, and when people hear boundaries, they think walls, cold, rigid, or even confrontational. But emotional boundaries are not about pushing people out. They're about protecting what's inside. An emotional boundary is the line between what belongs to you and what belongs to someone else. It's understanding that you are responsible for your emotions, reactions, and choices, and other people are responsible for theirs. Let me say that again. It's understanding that you are responsible for your emotions, reactions, and choices, and that other people are responsible for theirs. During the holidays, emotional boundaries are especially important because emotions run high. Family dynamics resurface, old roles reappear, expectations get louder, and without boundaries, it's easy to slip into patterns that leave you feeling overwhelmed, resentful, or emotionally spent. And having emotional boundaries means you can be present without being consumed. You can care without carrying, and you can love without losing yourself. Here's some keys to remember. Boundaries don't change other people. They change how you engage them. Very important. You're not looking to change other people. You're just changing how you engage them. So why do emotional boundaries feel especially difficult this time of year? Well, this is a very emotionally charged time of year. One reason is history. When we're around family, we often revert to old roles without realizing it. You might become the peacemaker, or the caretaker, or the listener, or the fixer, or the one who absorbs everyone else's emotions. So history is deep during the holiday season. We enter into those old patterns. Another might be guilt. Many people feel guilt setting boundaries with family, especially around the holidays. They believe that it's only once a year, or I don't want to ruin the holiday. So instead of setting limits, we can swallow discomfort and hope it passes, hope that it won't be an issue. There's also fear of conflict. Setting emotional boundaries can feel like you're inviting tension or upsetting someone. But avoiding boundaries doesn't eliminate conflict. It just internalizes it. It turns the outside in. And there's expectations. You know, the holidays come with unspoken rules about how we're supposed to feel and act. I'm supposed to in air quotes, you can't see it. But when reality doesn't match the image, it creates pressure to perform emotionally instead of being honest. You know, when we understand why boundaries are hard, it doesn't mean that we avoid them. It means that we approach them with compassion for ourselves. And that's really what emotional boundaries are about, is having compassion for ourselves, showing self-compassion, saying that I matter in this, and I'm not going to allow what others are doing to change the fact that I matter. Look, there are some common emotional boundaries that are challenged during the holidays. You know, one is absorbing other people's stress. Stress levels amp up during the holiday season. You know, someone else is anxious or overwhelmed or upset. All right. And then suddenly you feel it too. You start trying to fix it, soothe it, or carry it. All of a sudden, your emotions are wrapped up not in where you are, but in where they are. Here's the truth. Empathy does not require absorption. You can care without taking on someone else's emotional load. You can dwell with them and make room for them, offer space for them, but it doesn't mean that you need to own it yourself. There's that desire to feel responsible for everyone's experience. You know, you might feel pressure to make sure that everyone is happy or comfortable or enjoying themselves. But you are not the emotional cruise director for the holiday season. It is not your responsibility to make sure that everybody else's emotions are running high. Each person is responsible for their own emotional experience. Can't say this enough, and it's so important because we kind of lost that vision in a lot of places. Each person is responsible for their own emotional experience. It is not your responsibility to care for everyone's emotions. Being pulled into old family dynamics. You know, we all have family, and family dynamics run deep. You know, there's the old arguments or the old roles or the old tension or the old expectations, the things that go back generations. Emotional boundaries help you to step out of the patterns that no longer serve you. They help you to step out of those old arguments or those old roles or those old tensions. To be able to say, you know what, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not who that is expected to be anymore. I'm not a 14-year-old boy. I'm not a 12-year-old girl. And that can happen. You know, when you get into those conversations, I remember when you were so sweet and so young and, you know, I'm not that anymore. And I'm not going to be made to be that anymore. So being pulled into old family dynamics are very, very rich and strong during the holiday season. And so emotional boundaries help us to not be pulled into those old dynamics. There's the feel to over-explain yourself or justify yourself. You know, this is why I'm doing who I am, or this is why I feel. You know what? You don't need to over-explain your needs. You don't need to justify why you need what you need. This is what works for me is enough. This is who I am at this point is enough. If you don't want to engage in a political conversation, this is who I am. This is enough. If you don't want to engage in those old roles, you know what? I don't want to be that anymore. I am where I'm at right now. This is enough. Whether you're between jobs or you're chasing a dream, you know, you don't have to explain or justify. You can just say, this works for me, and that's enough. And now it may not be enough for them, but that's where your emotional boundaries come in. That's where you can say, you know what, if we're going to keep going down this road, I'm going to excuse myself. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Letting comments or criticism linger. That's another big thing. You know, someone makes a comment about your life or your choices or your appearance or your decision. Emotional boundaries help you decide what to take in and what to let go. Not every comment deserves space in your heart, and not every comment deserves space in the day. If someone wants to criticize your choices, let them criticize. If someone wants to make fun of your hair, let them make fun of your hair. It's not your responsibility to be offended or hurt. It's not your responsibility to adjust yourself for their own emotional state. You are where you are. Not every comment deserves space in your heart, and not every comment deserves a response. Not every comment deserves a reaction. When we set emotional boundaries, we're able to do those things. We're able to keep those things in check and not enter into those places that maybe we entered into before. And there are some practical steps we can do in order to create those emotional boundaries. The first one is to understand the separation between empathy and responsibility. You can acknowledge someone's feelings without fixing them. You can acknowledge, you can be empathetic for their feelings, but you don't have to fix them. It is not your responsibility to take their feelings on as a need to fix them. When you say to someone, I'm sorry that you feel that way, that doesn't mean I'll solve it for you. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that that's going on, or that's how you're feeling. But it's not your responsibility to fix them. It's not all of a sudden, okay, it's my responsibility now to fix how they feel. No, it's up to them. It's their responsibility. You can have empathy without taking on the responsibility. You can learn to use neutral responses. When someone tries to draw you into drama or conflict, neutral responses help you disengage without escalating it. You know what? That's one way to see it, I guess. I mean, I guess you could see it that way, but that's it. Or I hear you. Or, you know what? I'm not going to get into that today. I'm not going to get into that. We're here to have fun and have a party. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to dwell in that, and politics and religion and finances and the economy. These are all hot button issues right now, very divisive. And, we're kind of dwelling in this rage culture where everybody's just simmering right below the level of rage. So having neutral responses and being able to neutrally respond, I'm just not going to get into that today. I don't need to get into that right now. No, thank you. Thank you very much. Again, this is not avoiding. This is just saying I'm setting the boundary and I'm doing it in a neutral response. I'm not looking to escalate or engage or conflict. I'm just saying that's one way of seeing it. Or I'm not going there right now. I don't want to go there right now. Limit emotional exposure. In certain interactions, if they drain you, shorten them. There's nothing that says that you need to continually engage in an emotionally draining exposure. You don't have to. Shorten them. If you're in an interaction that's draining you, step away. Change the subject. Take a break. Oh, look, I need another drink. Oh, look, I'm going to go get another cookie. Oh, look, I have to go to the bathroom. Change the subject. Change the experience. You are not required to stay in highly charged emotional experiences. So change it. Step away. Shorten it. Whatever needs to be done. Look, you're protecting you. This is not about not loving them. This is not about, feeling bad about them. This is just saying, I'm being here right now. It's not for me. Step away. You don't even need to justify. Remember what I said. You don't need to justify or explain yourself. Just step away. You know what? I need to get another drink, or I'm going to go talk to Aunt Harriet, or whatever it is. Practice emotional detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're not emotionally fused. You can love people without letting their mood dictate yours. Okay, this is a big thing. You can love people without letting their moods dictate yours. You can dwell with them, you can be with them, but their mood doesn't have to dictate your mood. Their place doesn't have to dictate your place. If you want to enter in with them, you're more than welcome to, but it's not required. This is where emotional boundaries come in. And you know what? Like I said, give yourself permission to step back. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like you're in a place you don't want to be, step away. It's okay. It's okay to step away. Go to the other room. Take a break. Emotional regulation, my friends, is not avoidance. It's care. When you are emotionally regulating, when you are setting emotional boundaries, you're not showing lack of care or lack of care or love for someone else. It's not avoidance. It's about care for yourself. It's like if I stay here in this conversation, I'm going to get mad. I'm going to get upset. I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to be overwhelmed. I need to step away. And it's okay. It is okay to do that. You are allowed to set your emotional boundaries. You are allowed to care for yourself. This is your holiday season as much as it is everybody else's. And you're going to be around people. It's the holidays. Being around people is part of what it means to be in the holidays. So learning to have emotional boundaries is really, really important. Emotional boundaries are one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself during this time. All the time, actually, but particularly this time. They allow you to show up as yourself, not drained, not resentful, not overwhelmed. So let's look at maybe what you can do here. Let's maybe look at some action steps you can take. Identify one emotional boundary you need to practice this holiday season. You know yourself. You know what you do. You know if you absorb other people's stress, or if you engage in conversations and then walk away and go, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, or you over-explain yourself. So what's your boundary? What emotional boundary do you need to practice? Maybe it is not absorbing other people's stress. Wow, they're really stressed, but I'm not going to own that. Maybe it's not engaging in certain conversations. You know what? As soon as people start talking politics or the economy, I'm out. Not over-explaining yourself. you know what? I've worked very hard to get here. I've worked very hard to do what I'm doing, and I'm okay. Not taking comments personally. You know what? People are going to say what they're going to say. And if that's what they want to do, then I'm not going to take it personally. Stepping away when emotions rise, paying attention to your own emotions and the emotions around you, or releasing responsibility for others' happinesses. You know, these are some of the things that you can do. So I'd say identify one of those things that I just listed. Find the one that you need to practice the most and engage it. Write it down. Keep it simple. Practice it gently but consistently. You know, do it whenever you have to. You are allowed, I'm going to say this, you are allowed to protect your emotional energy. If you need permission from anybody, I'm giving it to you. You are allowed to protect your emotional energy. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to show up without losing yourself. The holidays are meant to be meaningful, not emotionally exhausting. And you are allowed to set those boundaries. You are allowed to set those emotional boundaries so that they don't become that. So that they don't become overwhelming and exhausting and something to be run from or feared or hurt by. You are allowed to set your emotional boundaries. Now, you don't have to walk around, my friends. You don't have to walk around with a sign on your forehead that says, I'm not going to talk politics this time. You know, you're allowed to set your emotional boundaries. You don't need to tell anybody. Just set them and live into them. Set them and live into them. You don't have to explain them. You don't have to define them. You define them to yourself. And if you need help, you know what? If you need help with setting some emotional boundaries, then bring somebody into your circle who you really trust, like your spouse or your kids or your parents. You know, and I don't want to get into this conversation about politics. So if we're talking and somebody brings up politics, then if I don't step aside, then help me step aside. I want to hold this boundary. I want to have a good time, and I don't want this to become ... Okay? So that's how we do it. That's how we can set emotional boundaries. I've said this in every podcast throughout this season, this seasonal focus so far, and I'll say it now. It is intentional. You need to be intentional about setting your emotional boundaries. Other people won't set your boundaries for you. Other people won't pay attention to your boundaries for you. You need to be intentional about setting your emotional boundaries. And when you're intentional about it, you can really strive to have a much more meaningful holiday season. That's what I got for you for today, my friends. I hope it's helpful. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. If you follow us on one of the listening platforms, then give us a rating and review. You'll get notifications when a new episode comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, I would love to hear from you. I really, truly would. GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. That's how you can get a hold of me. At Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.